So in this video, we're going to be going over the changes they made to the main assault rifles, and we're going to be telling you what are the best long-range rifles now to be using inside Warzone after these nerfs. If you enjoy weapon stat breakdowns and weapon comparisons, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post extra gameplay content over there as well. But first, let's quickly just go through the patch notes. Again, I don't want to waste too much time on this because you've probably seen this in other videos, but I just want to quickly go over it so you know what we've tested and what we're trying to look for here. So first of all, the Cold War AK-47 had the gun kick adjusted, so they wanted to make it behave more like a high caliber assault rifle, which no one really knows what this means, but we've done the testing on it to find out what that means. Then we've got the FARA 83, and they've done a lot of damage changes on this gun, but they've done it very specifically to not change many of the TTKs, and we'll go over that with you. But the maximum damage has been decreased from 29 to 25, minimum damage from 25 to 23, the head multiplier has been increased, then the neck multiplier has been increased, the upper torso multiplier has also been increased as well. So then we've got the Krig. Now the Krig had the most significant nerf in my opinion. We've got the recoil increase, and then we've got the neck multiplier being decreased from 1.3 to 1.1. Then we've got the QBZ, and the recoil has been increased slightly, and then the recoil dampening has been enabled. Now, it's such a weird wording for what they've actually changed here, but like I said, we'll show you that in just a second. So the first half of this video is going to be going over all of the changes to each of these weapons, so for the recoil and the damage, and in the second half will be giving my recommendations of what are the best weapons with some testing as well. But first of all, let's go over the Krig, because this is the most popular gun everyone wants to know about. So first of all, the neck damage is changed, so that is what they changed when it comes to the damage profile. They obviously gave it a nerf earlier on as well, but True Game Data's already updated all this. The only thing he's not updated here is the neck damage. So the new neck damage profile you will see right next to this. So the previous damage was 37, then it dropped off down to 32, then to 29. Now the damage profile is 32, drops off down to 28, and then down to 25. So as you can see, there's not really much of a neck shot multiplier anymore. And then the next weapon that got adjusted with the TTKs was the FARA. So you'll see the FARA on screen just now, and again you'll see the changed damage values right next to this one. So previously in its first damage drop off, the headshot damage was 37, 29 all the way down. Then in the second damage drop off, it was 35, 26 all the way down now. So that made the weapon very consistent. Because the damage is the same, you kind of know that you're going to get the same TTKs over and over and over again. And that is what they tried to change with this weapon. So they kept the TTKs for the most part the same, but if you do land some kind of extremity shots and stuff, that will throw off your TT. But the new damage profile for the FARA is 39 for the head still, so that's not changed of course. Then it's 30 for the neck shots, which they've increased the neck multiplier of course. Then it's 28 for the chest, 25 for extremities and stomach. And then for the long range damage drop off, it's 36 to the head, so it's slightly better. Then the neck multiplier is slightly better as well at 28. Then it goes to 25, then 23. So the next thing we're going to quickly show you is some of the recoil changes for all the weapons that were adjusted. So what we're going to do is test all the weapons that mentioned that they had a recoil nerf for recoil at this 20-meter distance right here. So first we'll have the QBZ. Let's take a look at this. And then we'll fire it again, and I'll tell you exactly what they changed for this one, so I know pretty much straight away what they've changed for this. So basically with the QBZ, if you've not watched any of our previous videos when we fired this weapon, if you fire it so far, at one point it kind of stops and it keeps firing in the same position. But now they've actually removed that from this weapon, so it didn't really have a lot of recoil, to be completely honest, and this is not a huge change to the weapon. But it is still a change nonetheless, and basically, like I said, what they've done is they've just stopped this weapon stopping midway through its recoil pattern. Now, the other weapon was the Stoner, so we'll take a wee look at what the Stoner looks like now when it comes to its recoil pattern. We'll fire off maybe like 50 or so bullets, let's say, because it's going to go off the screen anyway, because we've got tons of ammo on this gun. So let's see what this looks like. So it's a lot more sway with the Stoner now. Before it was perfectly straight upwards. Now it's not doing that anymore. So as you can see, it kind of goes up a little bit to the left, up again. We'll fire 50 again just to see what that looks like one more time. But like I said, previously the stoner was pretty much vertical, and that is why it was such a good gun to use, and it's still going to be a really, really good gun to use. So they never really changed the recoil too much on this weapon from the looks of things. So with the QBZ, like I said, they've made it not stop anymore, and then with the stoner they just add a bit of like weirdness into the recoil. So probably the biggest weapon change has been the Krig. Now usually I would use the standard weapon build, but the build that I've gotten so used to using for recoil is this build right here without the underbarrel with the serpent grip. That is what I think is the best build on the Krig build previously anyway. You might need the underbarrel now. So I'm just going to test that build because I know how the recoil feels with that build right there. So with this Krig, let's fire it. So there's a lot of things they've changed here from the feel of this recoil pattern. So what they've changed, first of all, is that it travels up really, really quickly. Now before, the Krig used to travel up very slow, and firing 60 rounds wouldn't have went off this screen, for example. It would have stayed definitely on this wall right here. So as you can see, it definitely travels up really quickly. So you can see that right now. This is more like what the FARA used to be before, to be completely honest. So this is like the FARA recoil on the Krig now, which is really weird. And before, if you watch any recoil chart on the Krig, you'd seen it went up and then it came back a bit down and then went back up again like that. Now it just kind of goes up to the left and then up to the right, which is kind of a lot easier to manage if you're trying to control it. So let's try and do that right now. So it's still relatively easy to control, but it's a little bit harder than before because, like I said, it has that fast travel up. So the kind of velocity that it travels, the recoil, is a lot quicker than before. Next, we're going to be looking at the Cold War AK-47. This is another gun that got touched with the recoil nerf, and this one just had a kind of a weird description and never really said what exactly it is they changed. They just said they wanted to make it feel more like a high caliber weapon, more or less. But let's just take a wee look and see what that means. So as you can see, the recoil on this gun is pretty terrible, to be honest. I didn't really think it'd be this bad, but I do think this is not going to be viable at long range at all. Like not viable at all at long range. Let's be completely honest here. Like, this is going up to the left, up to the right, up to the left again. There's a lot of corrections needed for that. Also, there's a lot of spacing between shots, and I don't remember it having this much spacing between the shots either. So I do think that they nerfed the Krig really hard, first of all, which might be good for some people, but I felt like they should have left the recoil pretty low on this gun, just as a low skill gun, but made it not hit as hard. I think that was kind of the whole point in this gun in the first place, but you know, they increased the recoil as well. And then with the Cold War AK, it was never really a viable long-range weapon, but I feel like they just made it less viable now, and I don't really think this needed a nerf when it comes to recoil in the Cold War AK. But so now we're going to take a look at what are going to be the 5 best long-range options inside Warzone. Now, on screen just now, you'll see the True Game Data website, and you'll see all the TTK charts. Now, these charts are still valid right now, and that is because, like I said, the FARA's TTK never changed with this update. The TTK is still the same if you land only chest shots. Now, it's when you start mixing in different kind of shot locations, that's when the TTK will change. But on the website, this is all we could choose so far, so I'm going to base this off chest shots. And the same thing goes for the Krig as well. If you're landing chest shots only, the TTK hasn't really changed. It's only the fact that this gun's going to be way less consistent now. The recoil has been increased, so you're not going to be hitting chest shots all the time like you could previously. And also that nick multiplier is no longer that good anymore as well. So that is the main issue. So we're going to base this recommendations of these 5 guns off of chest shots only right now. What are we looking for here? Low TTKs. We're looking for low TTKs, and I still think the FARA beats out most guns. Then we've got the Cold War AK-47, and that's not really a long-range weapon. It's not really ever been a long-range weapon, to be completely honest. So we could take that out of the equation here. So we're still with the FARA, and I think this is going to be pretty much the meta weapon at the moment because the recoil was never changed with the FARA in this update anyway. We've got the C58 and the AMAX. Now, depending on what kind of recoil pattern you prefer to manage, both of these guns are pretty damn good. Personally, I prefer the AMAX over the C58 when it comes to recoil, but as you can see in terms of TTK, both of these guns are very, very similar. But I would personally go for the AMAX, and I think most people would too. I think it's a little bit easier to manage than the C58, especially after all those recent adjustments. The Krig is basically now a worse GRAU. Let's be honest here. The reason why it's a worse GRAU is because it has an extra damage drop-off point, which the GRAU doesn't have. It's not got clean iron sights, which the GRAU does have, and it's just way less consistent, so the Krig is just not a good option anymore. And tucked away right at the back, we've got the M4A1. Now, as you can see, the TTK on the M4 is faster than both the GRAU, the M13, which I do think is a good option for low recoil, and even the AMAX. The M4 kills faster than the AMAX right now, and that goes for the C58 as well. And the M4A1 has less recoil, and I do think it's a better option than the XM4 still, because I think the M4 at longer ranges is slightly better. So we've changed the shot location now to extremities, and what you can see is that the M4 still performs pretty well at those longer ranges. It's still a really solid weapon to use, even if you don't always hit those chest shots. So let's get into my top 5 best weapons to use after this update. And starting off at number 1, we have the GRAU. Now, I do think a lot of people will be going back to using this weapon, especially the lower skill players. Just want something that is consistent, they can use all the time, and the GRAU has not been adjusted since like a long time ago, so if anyone's gotten used to using this gun, then the GRAU will still perform really well. You've got the clean iron sights on the Archangel barrel. You can build it like this, you could put an optic on it as well if you really wanted to. But this is the best build for the GRAU. It's the monolithic suppressor, gives you the sound suppression and the damage range. Archangel barrel gives you the best bullet velocity, the best recoil control. The tac laser for the aiming stability and aim down sight speed. The 60 round mags and the commando foregrip. Now, this gun is made for those people who are moving back away from the Krig to something with low recoil. Now, if you don't like the GRAU and you want to try something else, then the M13 is another low recoil option and a slightly better option in my opinion. If you do land headshots, the M13 is definitely a faster killing gun, and that is why it does involve a little bit more skill, even though it doesn't have much recoil. But landing those headshots will definitely get you the faster TTK with this weapon. So again, the monolithic suppressor for the sound suppression and the damage range. The Tempest Marksman barrel, that's for the best bullet velocity. VLK optic, because you do need an optic on this weapon. 60 round mags, which I feel like this gun can burn through ammo ridiculously fast. And then the commando foregrip for the recoil stabilization. But like I said, these are the 2 low recoil options. Like I said, this is for people who are switching away from that Krig and wanting to try out something different. Moving on into number 3, we've got some of the more hard-hitting weapons, and we're going to have the AMAX here along with the C58. Now, if you know what the C58 build is, that's great, but I'm not really going to give you one, because I do think the AMAX is slightly better when it comes to recoil control. That's in my opinion, but if you prefer the C58, that's absolutely fine, because in terms of TTK, both of these guns are pretty much identical now, so there's not really much that separates these 2 weapons. But for the AMAX, you do want to use the mono suppressor for the sound suppression and damage range, Zodiac barrel, commando foregrip, 45 round mags, and the VLK optic. This is pretty much the meta build for the AMAX. It's been like this for a while now. Not really much has changed. But like I said, this gun does perform very consistently. It hits pretty hard, and the recoil is manageable. Not easy, but manageable. At number 2, we have a gun that's kind of came back from the dead. This was basically a gun that was meta at Season 1. Way back in Warzone, like at the start of Warzone, and it's the M4A1. And this gun has very consistent TTKs. Whether you land your shots in any location, you're always going to get that same consistent TTK, and that's what people like about their weapons. For the build, it's the standard build for the M4: mono suppressor, grenadier barrel, VLK optic, 60 round mags, commando foregrip. You can actually use no optic on the M4 because the iron sights are relatively clean depending on what blueprint you have. And last but not least, at number 1, we have the FARA. Now, the FARA start getting popular again because the TTK on this weapon is insanely good. If you do land your chest, neck, and headshots, you're still going to get the same TTK as before, which is absolutely insanely fast. It's the fastest killing assault rifle in the game. And that is why I do think people are still going to stick to using the FARA, and most pro players will go for this gun because the recoil is not terrible. It's not uncontrollable, but it is a bit weird and you do need to get used to it. So if you're trying to find what the best meta weapon is definitely the FARA, and you're going to need to use the GRU suppressor, the Spetsnaz RPK barrel, the Spetsnaz grip, the Spetsnaz 60 round mag, and the Axial 3x optic as well. And that is the best build for the best long range weapon that's currently inside Warzone. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post extra content over there as well, and we will be posting gameplay of all these nerfed weapons over on that channel, so make sure you subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.